Okay, so I'm going to just do a quick, just a super quick review, and then I'm going to talk about some summaries that we should write. So, quick review, an overall review of Step 4. The book tells us what's the time frame. When do we do Step 4? It says we do it immediately after Step 3, right? A lot of us don't do it because we're afraid or we're confused, right? So hopefully here we kind of got rid of both of those things. We discovered that our fourth step is not a list of dirty, rotten, filthy things. Right? What it is, it's our flawed thinking processes. If it was dirty, rotten, filthy things, Step 4 would say made an immoral or amoral inventory, but it doesn't say that. It says a moral inventory, which means truth. So again, we're going to find our flawed thinking processes, which cause our flawed behavior. Bill compares it to a business. Discover the stock and trade about a business. He says a business which takes no inventory usually goes broke. We are the only stock and trade we have in this business of staying sober, and people cannot make us drink. We are the only ones that decide if we're going to drink or not, right? Maybe some people make us thirsty, but we decide, right? And for us to go broke is simply to go back to drinking, right? Now again, I'm gonna talk about that illusion of my head being a 7-Eleven. I got a file cabinet in one corner that's full of resentments, right? Damn him, damn her, those sons of bitches can't do that to me, I know better. God can't get through that. Our fears in the display case. Oh my God, what is she going to do when she finds out? Oh my God, I'm going to get fired today. Oh my God, I'm so... Right, God can't get through that either. And then we got that storage closet that's full of guilt, shame, and remorse. Ultimately, we're going to clean that up in 8 and 9, but I got rid of a good chunk of it in my fifth step by sharing. But that guilt, shame, and remorse in the storage closet says, John, you're the worst son. You're the worst boyfriend. You're the worst employee. You are the most awful person. We got to get rid of that crap too, because you know what? We're sick people. We're not bad people. So we empty these things out. You know, some guys make an allusion to cleaning out and scrubbing the garbage can. We empty it. Once we do that, the sunlight of the Spirit can come in, right? So we're looking at our wrongs, right? Our wrongs. And that's not, I mean, again, it's not dirty, rotten, filthy things. Incorrect judgment of other people. That's what a resentment is, right? I mean, my God, I sure like to judge other people. I'm right, damn it, and you're wrong, right? Not getting my way in the past. Incorrect perception of situations. That's my fear, right? When I'm not getting my way, my head's going to make up a scenario, and my head's going to tell me that I had better act and act quickly, or I'm going to suffer, right? And that it's an incorrect perception of what's actually going on, right? I don't think I'm going to get my way in the future. Right? And then we've got incorrect treatment of other people. Those are the harms and the hurts that we cause others. And that we do that because of our incorrect, flawed thinking, right? Based on our fears and our resentments, right? So again, a resentment, right? It says resentments are the number one offender. They're going to kill us. That means to re-feel something, to re-feel anger or bitterness because somebody did something to me in the past, right? So again, man, if my boss yells at me, that's a wrong, and I have every right to be a little bit upset, right? But it becomes a resentment when I go into the next room an hour later and I relive it and I get angry. Right? I get home that night and I relive it again and I get even angrier, right? This effectively blocks me off from doing anything worthwhile. And you know what? I found for me, I was not always entirely honest with myself because every time I relive a resentment, what was done to me gets a little bit worse. The harm that it caused me gets a little bit deeper, right? And what I might have done to get it going, to start it off, gets a little bit less. So when I replay them over and over again, I'm as white as the driven snow, and those sons of bitches did it to me. I'm a victim, right? And so even justified resentments are not true. So we look at resentments from an entirely new angle. We don't look at what that person did to me. We look at what the resentment is doing to me, right? The resentment is getting me closer to drinking. It's keeping me separated from God, from my fellows, and from myself. It's getting closer to killing me, right? Because, you never know. You pick up that drink that, this might be the run that kills you. Or maybe you'll run over a kid when you're driving drunk, blacked out, right? I discovered where my anger came from by doing this, right? My anger comes when my basic instincts of life, the third column, when I think that it's threatened. Right? When somebody threatens one of my basic instincts of life, I feel fear and I feel anger, and I have to react. So it could be the social instinct. What's my status in the community? Right? I want to belong. Right? I want to have self-esteem. What's in my security instinct? What I need to feel safe and secure, or my sex instinct, my desire to be with the opposite sex. When we get these on paper, 95% of them are going to disappear right away. The other 5% are so deeply ingrained, we're going to need help from sponsor, and we're going to need help from our higher power. We're going to have to pray about it. And justified resentments, they kill us just as much as unjustified resentments that we make up, right? And if you don't want to get rid of a resentment, by all means, don't pray about it. But I guarantee you, if you pray about it and you pray for the person, eventually that's going to go away. By doing this, I learned that just about all my fears were caused by one of the following. I'm not going to get something I really want. I'm going to lose something I've already got. Or I've done something to another human being I shouldn't have done, and I'm going to get caught. They're going to catch me, and then when they catch me, by the way, I'm going to lose something that I've got, or I'm not going to get something I want, right? And again, it's easy to spot an alcoholic running on self-will rather than God's will, because generally, they're madder than hell, and they're scared to death. And that's how I live my life. When you've got an alcoholic who can't depend on God, can't depend on other people, and we're at the end of the road and we can't depend on ourselves anymore, we're running absolutely scared to death, and hopefully we're going to get into these rooms and we're going to be willing to do the work. So again, we've got to get these things on paper, because we can only see one resentment at a time. We can only see one fear at a time, right? We can only look at the harms we've done people one at a time. We've got to get them on paper. And we're going to see how many fears and how many resentments we have. And we're going to see how they're controlling us and how they're blocking us off from God. Okay? It tells us that we've got to... it says that we've got to put out of our mind the wrongs others had done, right? So when we're doing these inventories, at some point we say it doesn't matter what they did. What is my mistake, right? Where had I been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? So we've got to see what the exact nature of our wrongs are. Here's what we're going to get. This is by doing the fourth step, we're going to get the following is going to happen. Now, we haven't even done the fifth step yet, right? We're going to see how many resentments and fear we had. And we're going to see the harms that we've done others as a result. We're going to see how these things block us off from God. We're going to see that it's not the people we resent, but rather what they did to us we resent. Then we're going to see it's not even what they did to us, but it's how we react to a threat against our basic instincts of life. Right? We're going to see that most of our resentments and fears are a waste of time. Right? Now remember, the good resentment is when I see somebody working harder than me and I feel resentful, but then I start working just as hard as him, right? A good fear would be I'm not going to try to climb a tree and jump from limb to limb, right? So there are good fears, there are good resentments. We're going to see that they paralyze us from doing anything worthwhile. Fear blocks us from what we're good at. We're going to see that they never did us any good, never straightened out any relationships, never made us any money. These resentments and fears never made us feel better, only worse. They block us off from God and we don't feel good. We become insane and we start to think about taking a drink, right? And then we can end up drunk all over again, right? We see that resentment is a gun that shoots backwards. It shoots us. We saw how people and fears have controlled and dominated us through our lives. Somebody could have done something to us 30 years ago and they might be dead and buried. And we're still thinking about it and angry, right? And this is particularly true when people either were, maybe sexually abused or beaten as a kid, right? Or maybe just treated badly. We see how stupid most of the resentments and fears are. And 95% of them are going to disappear automatically. The other 5% we get rid of through prayer, work with our sponsor. And you know what? If you want to go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, that's absolutely fine, right? Now, the amazing thing is that God won't let me have any more holes in my head. So this anger, these fears, these resentments, He replaces them with the opposite. Where I had resentment, he gives me serenity, a little peace of mind, a little bit of happiness, a little bit of compassion, maybe a little bit of love, and maybe some goodwill to my fellow man. Where I had fear, he gives me faith and courage. Remember, God, remove my fear and show me what you would have me be. What would you have me be? Patient, loving, kind, non-judgmental, right? If I can be that way, I'm going to do the next right thing, right? I no longer have to say, because I'm no longer a victim, I no longer have to say, if they hadn't have done that to me, I wouldn't have to be the way I am today. They caused me to be an alcoholic. They caused me not to have the courage to go back to school. They caused me to have a failing marriage, right? But no, we are no longer a victim, right? We do not have a place for victimhood in AA. We're all adults, and what happened to us in the past does not have to control what we do today. Perhaps we can see that people we're afraid of, people who have harmed us, are not bad people, they're sick people. Maybe we can straighten out some relationships while people are still alive, right? After people are dead, it's too late. It's too late to straighten it out, right? Doggone it, my parents. Now if people have harmed us and we pray for them to get rid of our resentment, that does not mean that we approve of what they've done. It doesn't mean we're going to take them hand in hand and skip down the rosy road of life. It means that we want to get rid of that anger and that fear that has been controlling us and dominating us and sending us back to the bottle, right? We saw that we use sex for things other than the sex instinct, right? That blew me away. I didn't understand that. To build self-esteem, to combat loneliness, for security, for revenge, right? Now, when we look at all this and we write out our ideal, we're going to lose the desire to use sex for these reasons. We saw what we did in many cases to get these things started, right? And why people retaliate against us. We see what our wrongs are, the resentment, the fears, and the harms we've done. We see the exact nature of them. Those are our character defects, our dishonesty, our selfishness, self-seeking, our fear, and our inconsideration. And here's the deal. Maybe if I can be just a little bit less, and I realize that none of us will ever be anything close to perfect, right? But if we can be a little bit less selfish, a little bit less dishonest, a little bit less self-seeking, a little bit less fearful and inconsiderate, I will not have to hurt and harm other people. They won't have to retaliate against me, and I won't have to fear and resent. It all starts from these doggone character defects, right? So now we're all set to do our fifth step. We know the nature of our wrongs to talk about in 5. We know the defects of character. We're going to become ready to have God remove in 6. We're going to have the shortcomings. We're going to ask Him to remove in 7. We have the list of names for 8 and 9. This is not scary. It's nothing to fear. Remember, God is with us in step 3, right? And God is starting to give me a kindly and tolerant view of people and to remove my fears and show me what He would have me be. Again, how should I be? And that, again, that's a statement of the consciousness, right? Because if I try to be the opposite of my character defects, I'm going to be better. Now, we're never going to get rid of our character defects. They're always going to be there, but hopefully they're going to be there in a much, much lesser degree. And for me, whenever I feel something going on, when I start to feel resentment, I start to feel fear, again, it's like, wow, man, that is a pointer which says you had better point your way back to your higher power because something's not right here. So my character defects can actually be good things because they're going to point me back to my higher power. And when I share them with another sick and dying alcoholic, he's going to be able to relate, and hopefully he's going to be able to get better. So the guilt, shame, and remorse, which we do deal with in 8 and 9, but just by talking about it in 5 and looking at it in 4, it's going to start to be replaced with good conscience, peace, serenity, happiness, and goodwill towards my fellow man. So, I tell everybody, don't sit around in AA waiting till you get better so you can do a 4-step perfectly, right? Because we got to get rid of the grosser handicaps by doing it. This is how we get better, by doing the 4th and the 5th step. And the main reason, and this is why I would come to AA, I wouldn't do this work, and I would always relapse over and over and over for 20 years. It's because a person's mind who is filled with resentment, a person whose mind is filled with fear, a person whose mind is filled with guilt, shame, and remorse does not feel good. You feel horrible. And eventually, searching for a way to feel better, we begin to think about the ease and comfort that comes from taking just a couple of drinks. I'm not going to have I'm not going to have a whole case. I'm just going to have a couple. But I start drinking, and the next thing you know, we think we can drink, and we get drunk all over again. So we got to do something about these resentments, this fear, this guilt, shame, and remorse in order to find the peace of mind, serenity, and happiness that we need for good long-term sobriety, right? Because if I have that constant tension and anxiety that I live with my whole life, why bother to be sober? I want some peace of mind. I want some serenity. I want some happiness. I want all those voices in my head to quiet down, right? And again, it's if I can just be a little bit less dishonest, a little bit less selfish, a little bit less self-seeking and fearful, a little bit less considerate of others, this is going to start to work for me. So let's take a quick look at this guidelines here. So what we're going to do, and this, I remember that I didn't do this very well the first time I did it. I did it better the second time. But they want us to write out 12 summaries, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our lists, right? Oh, shucks. I got to run some columns real quick here. I'm going to do this quick. So, harms and resentments. Okay. So I'm going to show you, I changed, this is all the same sheet, right? I'm going to go to some of my sexual ones first. Do you have your definition list? Can you get that out for me real quick? I never have that handy when I need it. I'm going to talk about Karen first of all. Karen, thank you. Karen was a woman that I used her for sex, right? I'd be drinking and doing my cocaine, and I would call her maybe 2 times a week at 3 in the morning and say, hey, I got some stuff, can I come over? Right? So who did I harm? Karen. What did I do? I used her for sex. How does that affect my social instinct, my self-esteem, what I think of myself, high or low? Well, you know what? I did not find Karen attractive. However, she always said yes, at least most of the time. Positive, I didn't find her attractive. Negative, it affected my self-esteem both positively and negatively. Personal relationships. Where am I here? Our relations with other human beings in the world around us involves a third party. So how did this affect my personal relationships? Well, I kept her a secret, right? So it affected my personal relationship because I sure didn't want to talk about her, and I had to hide things from people. So I was evasive, right? So it absolutely affected my personal relationships. Material, wanting money, property, clothing, maybe, maybe not. Emotional, based on our need for another person or persons. That absolutely affected my emotional security. Sex instinct, acceptable sex relations. Our sex lives is accepted by society, God's principles, our own principles. Hidden sex relations. Well, this whole thing was a hidden sex relation, and that absolutely affected my acceptable sex relations because I knew that I always had her in my back pocket, so I didn't necessarily go out to try to find somebody that I might have been more interested in establishing a relationship with. My ambitions for the future, social, plans to gain acceptance, power, recognition, maybe, maybe not. Security ambitions, maybe, maybe not. She did, by the way, bust into where I work because she wanted more, right? She showed up at places where I drank because she wanted more than just to be, twice a week in the middle of the night. Sexual ambitions, your plans regarding your sex lives, either acceptable or hidden. Absolutely, because again, I might not have tried to have a relationship with somebody else because I had her, right? So where was I selfish? Selfish, when they're talking about money, maybe not. But let's look at dishonest. to commit to do out and out lies or what I didn't say. I was dishonest. I would tell her whatever she wanted to hear so I'd get what I wanted. Self-seeking, what I want matters more than what you want. My needs matter more than yours. My feelings or comforts come first. Absolutely, right? Frightened, I was absolutely terrified that she would bust into my regular life. I was terrified of it. Was I inconsiderate? Did I fail to consider how she felt, her wants, her needs? Absolutely, right? Here's the exact nature of my wrongs. I was dishonest. I was self-seeking. I was frightened. I was inconsiderate. If I would have had that sexual ideal written out and tried to live up to it, that would have never happened. You know, I had another one. This is probably one of my first ones. When Tammy Scray. When I was 15, she was 14. Maybe I was 16. Maybe she was a year or two younger. We went to the state fair in Vermont, and I abandoned her at the fair. This girl might have been the love of my life. I had this strange feeling that she might have been, but I was just getting going in my using career, and I had to go out. I had a fake idea. I had to go out to the bars drinking and smoking pot with my friends, so I took her to a McDonald's. I called a cab for her, and then I went out with my friends to get drunk. So I'm on a date, and I abandoned her because I got to go get drunk, right? Can you imagine? Well, the cab never came, right? And she had to call her father. He wanted to kill me. So, I mean, my self-esteem, horrible. Personal relationships affected all of them. Everybody heard about that. Security, emotional. I mean, it just affected all of these things. I was dishonest. I was selfish, thinking about myself. I was dishonest because I said, we're going to go on a date, and then I abandoned her. Self-seeking, what I wanted mattered more. I ended up being frightened because of what had happened, and I was completely inconsiderate. I mean, this is my first one, but I've got a big, long history of treating women like that, right? All through my drinking and using career, right? Here's another one, Connie Egremont. At St. John's, I didn't keep any of my promises I made to her. Laurel, another girl, you know, that I used her for sex and she wanted more. I would run the column just like her. I mean, there's just a whole list of these people, right? And I wanted to do them all from the beginning, right? So I started with her. Now, if I find some of these people in step 9, does that mean that I'll necessarily go and make amends? They're married with kids, and then maybe not. I don't think I will, right? Because I don't want to make me feel better, you know, when I show up like with Karen, hey, sorry I used your wife for sex. No, I'm not going to do that, right? I mean, I always joke every time we talk about step 9 at a meeting, you know, knock, knock, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm here to make amends that I slept with your wife. No, we don't do that. We don't do that. Let's look at one more. I'm just going to do one more. Salespeople, right? I would steal deals from the salespeople, right? I mean, my self-esteem, again, positive that I could pull it off, negative because I was a schmuck. Personal relationships, of course it affected all my other person, and not just because other people saw me doing it. My security instinct, yeah, I was worried about not having enough money for drugs and alcohol. Sex relations, maybe not, affected a lot of my ambitions for the future. Was I dishonest? By the way, when I was in my using career, once I got a taste of somebody else's deal, I spent 5 minutes with that guy. I used my superior knowledge. That guy didn't do a good job. I'm taking this deal. And once I got that into my head, for me to give that deal up was like me not taking a drink. I had to have that deal. And I mean, these character defects would go into full bore attack, and I would do whatever I could to get that deal. I mean, it was crazy when I looked at all of these things that I used to do. Because, I mean, so I would be dishonest. I would lie about it. Well, he didn't ask for you. You didn't see this or that, right? I was selfish. I wanted the money. I was self-seeking. What I want mattered more. I was frightened that I was going to get caught, and I was certainly inconsiderate that they had kids and had to pay the mortgage. So all of these things, right? And we go through these sex and these harms, and we run the columns just like that. You know, do your sexual ones and then do all the harms you've done others. But this is always the same list. We got to get this stuff on paper, man. We got to get it out. My family, right? What does that say? I can't even read my own writing.
No, sure.
Oh, yeah. Family. I mean, all the time. I'll be there, right? I never would show up over and over for events and christenings and birthday parties, and old Uncle John's not here again, right? So I would not show over and over. Self-esteem, I felt horrible. Personal relationships, everybody talked about it. You get the idea. We go through, we read these definitions, we see and what we're looking for here are guilt, shame, remorse, and then some of the repercussions of what we've done, how it's affecting us. But we got to get and see what our character defects are, and that's why, gosh, you know what, God? Myself, when I went through this inventory, I saw that I was one greedy son of a bitch. I am going to need some help with my selfishness. Oh my God, was I dishonest? I was such a liar. God, I didn't lie because I was a liar. I lied because I was afraid. I was self-seeking. I always put myself first. And I was just afraid that I wasn't going to get what I wanted, right? Or that somebody was going to screw me over. I never looked at other people's points of view, right? So we got to look at this part right here. And when we lessen these, right, we're not going to end up hurting and harming these people. And then we're going to start to get along with people in this world better. So this is just a wonderful thing to look at. So guidelines. Okay. So this is a little bit tricky. At least it was for me, because again, I was a slow learner. What they want us to do, they want us to write out, there's your sheet, I don't want to take that. Okay, so you will need to make 12 summaries. There it is.
12 summaries for each name?
No. 12 summaries total. This, yeah. So it's a total of 12 pages or 12 half pages. No. And remember, when you're doing this stuff here, and your resentments and your fears, and even what did I do, we really don't want to get more than 5 or 6 words for these things. If we have a resentment when we write a book in column 2, we're going to get pissed off. So we just write a few words, and then we see how it affects us and what our part is. So, guidelines, you made 12 summaries total. 1 summary for each of the 4 groups of your defects of character in column 4. Selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, frightened, and inconsiderate. Dealing with each of the 3 lists that you have. In other words, get your resentment list out, okay? And you are going to look, on your resentments, you're going to look for one where selfish was the main character defect that caused that resentment, okay? Because of your selfishness, right? Cause that, and you're gonna write about it. So, for me, I wrote for my selfish resentments. My little notes say because of my extreme selfishness, I didn't pay money I owed to the IRS. I go to column 2, okay. And because I didn't pay the money to the IRS, it affected my self-esteem, it affected my material security, and how it did the ones that I've got checked, okay? And ultimately, that I was angry at them for wanting to take all of my money, okay? Let's do another one, selfish for me again. Let's do selfish fears, okay? Because of my extreme selfishness, I would steal other salespeople's deals. Okay? Because of my extreme selfishness in the stealing of the deals, it affected my self-esteem, both high and low, because I got away with it, but low because I was a bad person. Because of my extreme selfishness, stealing the deals affected my personal relationships, because other people saw me doing that and treated me badly. Because of my extreme selfishness and I stole those deals, my security, I felt I had to do it because I felt I needed the money, right? And I also needed the emotional kudos to be at the top of the sales list. So you kind of, and these are just for me, we're going to read some examples too. Dishonest, let's go, another one I had would be dishonest resentments, right? So I'm going to go to my resentments list where dishonesty was the main character defect, right? Lied to my family about being sober because I was afraid they weren't going to give me my little bit of inheritance when my father died, right? Because I'm not going to get that money. So, and I just kind of wrote out a little bit of thing. I'm going to let's go to inconsiderate fears, okay? Because of my extreme inconsideration, I treated Karen as somebody who would only be used, who I'd only go to and see in the middle of the night once or twice a week. And I was inconsiderate of her needs and her wants, and this caused me great fear because she would come into my place of business and make a scene. She would come into where I was drinking and make a scene, and it caused a lot of fear. And mainly it was because, I was inconsiderate of what she wanted, her needs, her wants, her desires, right? So we just write out a little page. So what we're doing is we're just looking for some of these things in our resentment column where they're checked all the way across, man. They're checked all the way across, and then we just look at them and we see what is the main character defect, right, that caused me to have this resentment, okay? So again, when I'm stealing deals, it's my selfishness, right? Inconsiderate harms. Because I failed to consider that, my father was a very busy man. He was a college president. I was the 9th kid. I called him a bad father because he didn't have time to come to my sporting events when I was a kid, right? I was inconsiderate of the fact that he was doing the best he could to support 9 kids, and he was a busy man, right? I made him feel bad, and a lot of these things were affected, when I'm calling him a bad father, right? So we want to write out 12 summaries. So we label the top of the paper with the character defect from column 4. Okay, so again, the major defect of me stealing the deals is because I'm selfish. Then we label resentment, fear, or harm, right? Well, I'm going to say that one could be fear or harm, but I'm going to say harm because I harmed the other people. Then I'm going to give the description of the cause from column 2, right? I stole their commissions. And then I'm going to state how that specific defect of character affected each column that I checked. So what part of myself was affected by it. So all we're doing is we're just writing out the ones that we got everything checked on. We just want you to write out 12 summaries on the big ones. And this is just so that you kind of get it. If you write it out, you're going to see some things, and you can share that with your sponsor. So to sum up how your defect of character played a role in the resentment, fear, or harm, right? Because again, if we can get God to lessen our selfishness, our dishonesty, our self-seeking, our fear, and inconsideration, we are not going to have to do these things. And people aren't going to have to retaliate and affect all these other things in our lives. We're going to get along better with other people, with God, and with ourselves, with our own doggone heads. So I'm going to read 3 of them real quick. So these examples, the last one is really good, but I'm going to read all 3 of them. We got time. So this is a selfish resentments. and again, you don't have to, just one page. I am resentful at the city of Minneapolis, Bill B. and Dave A. The cause of the resentment is I had to fight to get a promotion that I felt I was clearly deserving of because of my seniority and qualifications. I've been there longer and I'm better. It didn't matter who I harmed along the way. What did seem to matter to me was the money, less work, more power, and me getting my way. Because of my selfishness, and my sponsor said, you write because of your extreme selfishness, right? Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem was affected because I wasn't willing to understand why they had a problem seeing that I wasn't best for the job. Okay? His self-esteem is affected. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships were affected because I felt forced to step on some toes to get what I wanted. Because of my selfishness, my material security was affected because I thought I may have advanced faster or further had these things happened sooner on my terms. Because of my selfishness, my emotions are affected because of the bad feelings I feel for these people. Because of my selfishness, my social ambitions may have been harmed because I can't or don't trust myself at any social events where I know they will be for fear of what I may say or do. He could not control his emotional nature. He's going to blow up, and I was that way too. Because of my selfishness, my future security was affected due to the loss of money, which I felt may hamper my ambitions. My retirement fund and my wages are mainly what I thought may have been affected. No matter what their part in this was, I took selfishness to an extreme. It was an obsession that helped create the resentment and emotions. Had I been less selfish, I may have been able to handle the situation differently with the same or better results. I would have been able to let go and move on. So let's go to me. If I had been less selfish when I'm dealing with somebody else's customer, even if I spent a lot of time, maybe I could have gone to that person and said, hey, I helped this person out. I did this and this. I know you did this. Maybe we can split the commission. Or if I was less selfish, I only spent a couple of minutes, take the deal, right? So if we can be less selfish, right? Next one. Selfish fear. Okay. I am fearful of bankruptcy. This is, I think, a wife. I am fearful of bankruptcy. The cause of this fear is my staying home with the girls and my husband not making enough money. So she's afraid that they don't have enough money. She's terrified. Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem is affected because I think I can't buy and do the things I'd like for my family. I feel less than. I'm not a good person because we don't have enough money. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships are affected because all I talk about is my lack of money. So therefore, I feel unable to go out. Who wants to go out with Debbie Downer? Oh, we don't have enough money to do this. We don't have enough. My husband can't make enough money, right? Because of my selfishness, my material security is affected because all I look at is what I think I can't do or can't have because of no money. Because of my selfishness, my security ambition is affected because I don't feel financially stable. Because of my selfishness, no matter how much money my husband made, it wouldn't be enough. I wanted more. I lost sight of faith in God that He would provide what was needed. Okay? We're going to read one more here. This one I like the best. Selfish harms, right? So this is, I harmed an old boyfriend, Rob. I feel that I harmed him because I stayed in the relationship for a year after I lost interest in him. I had put a lot of the money I had earned into the relationship. He kept assuring me that it wouldn't be long before he could pay me back and give me more than I could have on my own. I felt justified staying with him, waiting for what I felt I had coming. My plan was to leave once I was paid back. So she's paying the cable bill, the rent, and food, and she wants to leave the relationship, but she's staying in it because she wants her money back. Because of my selfishness, my self-esteem was affected because I felt I was better than Rob. I felt I had put more into the relationship than he had. I felt I was too good for him, and she's staying in it. Crazy. Because of my selfishness, my personal relationships were affected because I gossiped to my friends and family about what a loser he was. She's staying with him. They in turn tried to talk me into leaving, which I had no intention of doing until I was paid back. This caused tension in my relationship with my family. Because of my selfishness, my material security instinct was threatened because I thought if I left when emotionally the relationship was over, I wouldn't get my money back and I'd start over with nothing. Because of my selfishness, my emotional security instinct was threatened because I was depending on him to pay me back. I wasn't working toward any arrangements for him to pay me back. I thought I needed to keep him emotionally locked into the relationship in order to get my money. We took turns emotionally dominating the relationship. Because of my selfishness, my acceptable sex relations were affected because I had trouble having any sex relations with him once my feelings for him had changed. But she's staying with him and probably doing it anyway because she wants her money. Because of my selfishness, my hidden sex relations were affected because once my feelings for him had changed, I began to find that I was interested in other men. I flirted with them and led them on. I wanted to know that once I was single again, I could find men who would be interested in me. Because of my selfishness, my security ambitions were affected because I wanted to make sure I got the money. I needed to get an apartment and other things I wanted to get started in my life without him. Because of my selfishness, my sexual ambitions were affected because I had to put them on hold until I got my money. I had no sexual ambitions with Rob. She might have met the love of her life, but sorry, man, got to stay with this loser till I get my money back. I took selfishness to an extreme. Rob's part could have changed if I hadn't been selfish. I didn't have to give him the money in the first place. My selfishness got in the way because I believed I would get more later if I paid then. Had I been less selfish, I would have kept the financial situation separate from the emotional. Instead, I used his feelings for me and was dishonest about my feelings for him to ensure payment. So, my goodness, I wonder, how long did she end up staying with this guy to try to get her money back? Cut your losses, man. Cut your losses and move on. So does everybody kind of get this a little bit? And I mean, even if you don't, when you see the check marks all the way across, just pick a selfish resentments and write a page about it. That's all. But don't make it more complicated than it is. And pick the big ones. My sponsor had me read all 12 of them that I did. They were 1 page long. So, and remember, you are no longer a victim when you do this. Real quick, guys, I sat down for 1 minute and I just wrote out, I've done a couple of 4 steps. I just sat down for 1 minute. Here's my resentments. Mike from M&M, he's not ordering from me. That son of a bitch isn't ordering from me and I'm doing all the work. Right? Kevin, my new boss. Jesus Christ, I know so much more than him. I got 15 years more. God, I know more than that son of a bitch. Company, new pay system, right? My warehouse staff, they're lousy workers. Nobody showed up Monday morning. I was in the warehouse for 5 hours. A 54-year-old guy loading 80-pound everything, right? Big resentment about that one. People I'm working with relapsing, right? How can they relapse, right? I did it for 20 years. Peterson's Lawn Service, they double billed me and they didn't come and clean out my poison ivy. My purchasing department, doing a bad job purchasing product. Marketing, right? A lot of company stuff. Trump, bad relations with our allies. He's wrecking the environment, right? I got all these resentments, right? But what can I do about that? Can I do anything about that? Fear. Trump, nuclear war, right? Fear of my company. Are these people going to do a good enough job to keep this company going in the future, my livelihood? Another fear. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Another fear. I won't be alone for the rest. I like being alone. I got them both. Right? Harms. There's a guy at work. I make fun of him all the time. I got to try to stop. Other salespeople, I badmouth them. They're lazy. They're stupid. They're slow. They don't clean up after themselves. Whether it's true or not. People in the purchasing department badmouthing them. Marketing. Bad-mouthing them. So a lot of I'm still harming people, and I got, I see it. I gotta say, hey man, I was wrong, and hey, I was wrong. I gotta stop it. And I gotta stop gossiping too. So I just wrote those out in like 3 minutes. So anybody have any other questions I may or may not know the answer to? So okay, we're gonna meet next week and talk about the 5th step. And then schedule your 5th step between there and then 2 weeks further on. We won't meet the Tuesday after Labor Day, but we're going to jump right in. We're going to take 6 and 7. What is it, on maybe the 13th or something. So get the 5th step done. All right, man. Let us end with the 3rd step prayer. God, I offer myself to Thee, to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always. Peace.